Hmm. Greetings, greetings, greetings. How's everybody doing? Welcome to Cat's Corner One-on-One Live. I'm your host, Risikat Okedeyi, and I'm I'm excited about all of my guests. So when I say I'm very, very excited, I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but I'm really excited about who I get to chat with today because I have watched this sister go from, corporate world into this spiritual space, and it's been a beautiful journey. So please welcome the good friend, yogi, spiritual counselor, all things medicinal and flexi, Miss Rachel Voss.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm so wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to do it. I appreciate it. Some of y'all I'll be asking and y'all be like, I don't know.
So no. I'm nervous. Listen, I'm so nervous. You know what you are to me, but this is like such a beautiful full circle moment, yes. From when we first met to now. Excuse me. Yes. So it's like I'm excited, nervous, but excited.
Well, there's nothing to be nervous about. It's a safe space. I'm beginning your business, of course.
I know.
I get in your business. But I am so excited to see you. And if I look a little crazy, Miriam, because I know you're probably going to say something when you see this. Yes, I have been crying. Rachel popped in and I looked up, and it's just like, I don't know. I just got overwhelmed. And I also blame Manira, my one of my favorite practitioners. I went to see her yesterday, and she opened up some blockage. Yes. And so I think that I will be. No, I think my tears are for you, but I think there'll be more later today.
So. Yes. Let them flow.
Anywho, so how are we doing today?
We are doing wonderful. Nice, quiet Sunday. Got my candle set up on my mat. So doing good. I'm in my space.
Okay, I'm glad. Yeah. You are now Rachel Voss Yoga, but when I met you, the hair is being real disrespectful today, y'all. But when I met you so long ago, and I don't even remember how, I feel like I've known you forever, but I know it's at least a decade.
You have known me, Kat. Okay, so first of all, Voss, my son, he'll be 14 in May. Okay, let's talk about that. But you knew him. You met me.
And Voss was?
Probably 1, because you met me. I was still married when you met me. I was still married.
Oh my gosh.
I was getting ready to transition.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to transition.
Right. I remember.
Yes.
Okay.
So you didn't meet Voss officially until Red Tent Planning.
Yes.
But you met me probably about, like 2008, 9-ish. I know.
It's already together. So when I met you, I think we had done, was it a Red Tent, or was it it might have been Red Tent related, because we were doing the moon meetings where we gathered around the moon. And I think Evelyn was the one that introduced us, right?
Yeah, but in the back of Smile Herb Shop. Red Tent. Listen, that's why I say this is so full circle, because I was going through what I was going through. Evelyn was like, you need to meet my friend Risikat. And then we met at Smile Herb Shop. It was my first time going to Smile, and she took me to the back, and you looked at me. You didn't even say hello. You were just like, you need to go to an island by yourself and just find yourself. You got too much light. You listening to too many people. You gave me a holy basil recommendation, like a t-shirt.
Holy basil.
Yeah, that's why I say it is so full.
Oh my God.
Yes. So that was the first time we officially met, when you came into my orbit. You know what I mean? And then it was like 2 or 3 years later was the Red Tent Planning.
So what's fascinating is whenever people tell me how I gathered them, it's always like, damn, I said that. Because I say a lot of things, in those moments when, especially working at Smile was such a great experience, because it really helped me. I've always been intuitive, but it helped me really hone in. And I remember, because I don't know, I think Evelyn might have mentioned she was bringing a friend. But I remember your energy in that moment. Like when I see you now, it's like you're a completely different person. But there was so much and I remember when I finally, got to learn more of the story, I was like, oh girl, you needed to go. This was a good thing for you. And I watched you slowly just transition. And so what I thought would be great for the people was if you would kind of walk us through, because a lot of folks aren't going to end up full 180 where they go from being sort of corporate-minded meeting to yoga instructor.
Right.
You were able to find the nuggets, the breadcrumbs, and you followed the path. And I think it'd be really cool for people to hear about how you started to trust that instinct and how it led you to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think where I met you is the perfect place to start, because that's kind of where it all began. You know, like my first moment of finding my free, so to speak, was freeing myself from a marriage that wasn't working. And, you know, sis, like, it's interesting because up until that point, my whole life was like, get married and have some babies. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think about anything else outside of that besides school and career and stuff like that. And then you have the moment and then it's like, oh, you know, this is not what I thought it would be. And so that was like my first moment of like, okay, I have to go. I have to choose me. It meant choosing to be a single mom. You know, like I said, my kid was like 1 at the time. All my family's in New York. I'm down here in Maryland. So I knew this was going to be like a heavy journey, like transitioning from being married to being a single mom. And so that was kind of like the beginning of things. And so just trusting myself with that, you know, choosing my happiness. It was like, you know I'm leaving this 2-parent household, but like I can't suffer because my kid will suffer. And to me, it was just so much more important to teach him choices of happiness, you know, even at one. And so then I'm doing the corporate thing. I'm working in like the housing finance industry, lobbying, you know, all that good stuff in DC. And it's a beautiful on paper job. I can pay the bills, check to check, but I can pay the bills, you know what I mean? Traveling, all that good stuff. But on the inside, it was just kind of like, you know, like something's not right. And I would feel like I had this energy, but I couldn't put my fingers on it. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like, I'm looking for something. And so enter Red Tent, you know what I mean? And Evelyn first invited me to the initial one y'all had in 2011. And when I walked in, Kat, it was 2 things. It was first, I was nervous because it was always about trying to find my place. You know what I mean? Just with wherever I was. So it was like I say, I'm nervous today. So I was like, oh, I'm nervous. And then it was as soon as I walked in and I saw the energy, it was just like, I fell into what I was looking for kind of spiritually, you know, because I had like moving on from Christianity. I was a Muslim for a while. Like I was just looking, you know, and I just felt like I found something there. And it was just this beautiful day. And I'm going from session to session. And there is this sister there besides you and Evelyn. She was pregnant at the time. And you know how you just like, you're in a room and you're kind of like, you're just drawn to somebody's energy and you don't know why. And it's just kind of like, I'm drawn. And I'm just looking, I'm like, oh man, she's pregnant. She must have this perfect life. She's beautiful. Da, 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 da. And so the sister and I end up in the same session, the last panel of the day, which was like a body image panel or something like that. And we both raised our hand at the same time to have a final comment. And she got picked. And this sister all day, who I had been kind of just like, oh my God, she's just this goddess, told her story of her body image issues and her struggle. And it was just like, I would have never thought that was her story. And it was such a eye-opening moment for me, a huge moment, because it made me realize like I wasn't alone in the stuff I felt like I was dealing with. And that was so much of where I was at the time. And so that sister ended up closing out the day with a yoga breath. And that sister ended up being Dana. And so we all know who Dana is. And so that was a huge breadcrumb. You know what I mean? So I noticed her energy. And then you fast forward a year later, I'm at the height of misery of my corporate job. You know, every day I walk in like, I'm gonna quit. You know what I mean? Like not knowing what I'm gonna do, not knowing what's happening. And lo and behold, like I came into work late, like 5 minutes one day. And like my boss like walked in like immediately, like, can you do anything to come in earlier? And it was just like a morning that was rough. I'm dealing with my kid, you know, all of that. And I really was going to walk out of work that day like, this is some bull, you know what I mean? Like this shit is going to be down my back or whatever. But the next day I got up, I was like, nope, let me make this effort. Let me try and do my best. And trying to get to work on time, 5 minutes early, I was in a car accident. And it was really bad. And it took me out of work for like 2 months. It wasn't that I was physically broken, but I always thank God, like the doctor that I went to see after all of that just kind of looked at me and was like, yeah, like you need to just go sit down for a while and like go you know what I mean? I think I just look crumpled, you know what I mean? It was a lot.
You know what? It wasn't that you look crumpled. It just, you know, there is this when people are being pulled in too many directions, sometimes depending on how you see, like all I saw, I remember because I refer to them as gnats. like you're at a cookout and it's like
yes. Yes.
You're trying to eat your food and have a good time, and there are all of these things that are distracting you. It just felt like, because your energy now is like gnat free, which is amazing. But I think that, I think I don't know, I wouldn't say that you looked crumpled, because I remember the conversations that we would have, and I was like, yo, you are New York through and through. Like, you may be this cute little petite somebody, but I was like, she will beat somebody's ass. Like, y'all better watch out for Rachel. So there was fire in you, but there was this sense that I remember that conversation we had about your marriage.
Yeah.
Just how the conditioning around you just like, why you just there. And I was,
and that was like, honestly, Kat, like that was so much of my life. I was just there. You know what I mean? And that's why I feel like that doctor just looked at me like, you just need some time. And I'm so thankful for that. So it was in that space where I started taking, yoga was always in my life, but I started taking it more because I had the time, and it became introduced to me in that space as a healing practice, not just like this cool thing to do to find my zen. It was like, oh, and so the next nugget I had, it was a yoga teacher. She looked nothing like me or you, but she was just in her zone. And I remember just looking at her like, I need that in my life. I just need to be free and just, and I didn't know what that looked like. I just was kind of struggling with that. But that was the first thing that kind of scratched the surface with like, let me look into this yoga thing a little bit more. And as with everything spiritual, I always go to Evelyn. Like Evelyn is just the presence in my life that introduced me. So I'm like, Evelyn, I want to do this yoga teacher training. And so she's like, oh, you should talk to Dana. And I'm like, oh, that's this is from the year before, whatever. And then sure enough, like as soon as Evelyn said that, Kat, like the next day, she didn't even have a chance to reach out to Dana. We still had the Red Tent Facebook group.
Right.
Dana had posted like the next morning, like, oh, if you're looking to learn more about yoga, okay, join this like intro. And that's exactly what I was looking for. I was like, I don't want to go in all the way. I don't want to do the 200 hours. I just want to kind of learn something. And so I joined her teacher training, the level 1, like later that year in 2012, my 35th birthday. And then when I was done with that, I was kind of like, okay. And Dana was like, oh, so you're doing the 200, right? And I'm like, oh, no, girl, I'm good. She was like, so you're doing the 200, right? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I am. And I tell you what, like I said, even though I was working, I was still corporate at the time. I was check to check, but I was just like, Dana, frankly, I can't afford this. I'm single mom in it. Like, I just don't have the thousands of dollars. And I'll never forget, she was just like, I ain't gonna say what she said, but she said, pay X amount, like just to show your good faith, and like we'll figure out the rest from there. And that I knew, it's like the universe was like, here, don't walk away from this. So I was like, all right. So I did that. Yoga teacher training just broke me down, opened me up, helped me kind of start to realize like what I was really kind of looking for and searching for, which was myself. And then when I was done with that was like 2013. She's like, all right, so you're gonna start teaching, right? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I just wanted to learn. And she's like, so I created this class for you. You know what I mean? I always say that Dana's like the godfather because she gives you mad offers you cannot refuse. It's like, you know what I mean? It's
I really miss her. I need to hit her up. I haven't
let me tell you, it was just like she was absolutely, I mean, I look at you like that. I look at Evelyn like that. Like she was absolutely the teacher that appeared, because the student was ready. And so I started teaching that one class, Kat. And the more I was teaching that class, the more I was like getting uncomfortable with my corporate life. And I didn't know what, getting comfortable looked like, but it was just like, I can't be about this life anymore. And so you fast forward 2015 and I'm coming back from a work trip on a plane. I'm coming back from San Diego and I read this book, The War of Art, that Dana gave me. And like within the first 15 pages, I'm like, you know what? It's time to go. Like it was like this feeling that hit me in the pit of my stomach. And then like immediately it's like, no, you can't, like you got kids, you can't quit, you can't do this. But the more I felt that feeling, the more I was like, I have to go. And so literally the next day I went into work and I was just like, I'm doing this. I submitted my resignation. I was banking it all on this one yoga class that I was teaching. And I was just like, I'm going to figure it out from there. But it was absolutely like honoring the energy of what I felt when I walked into that Red Tent space, how Dana kind of showed up into my life and just listening to all of that. And, this entrepreneurial ride has been bumpy, but I'm still standing, 6 years later. And I know it's one of the best decisions I could have ever made. So You know, I'm still arriving, but I have arrived. You know what I mean?
So. Yeah, you there. I mean, you there. I mean,
I'm in the building.
You're in the building. I think you're on the second floor. I mean, you in the elevator.
Yeah. I'm coming to the cocktail reception. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna have me a drink.
Oh my gosh. I'm extremely proud of you because I know it took a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Like I've held space for women who are like, so I'm ready to quit my job. What do I do? Mm-hmm. And it's hard. It's a hard decision. I remember I was working as an international trade person for an association, mm-hmm. and I snuck off to London because I was managing artists at the time. And one of my cousins was able to put a gig together for Tamara Wellens, actually. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I was reading The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Mm-hmm. I was on the plane reading, and I finished it while I was on the plane. I looked at her and I was like, I'm quitting my job. She was mm-hmm. like, Rissy, you ain't quitting your job. I was like, yeah, I'm quitting my job.
Yeah.
And it was just very clear. It was time. Mm-hmm. Well, what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm going to teach, I'm going to try to grow this company, but I'm going to quit my job. Yeah. And she did not believe me. And mm-hmm. I quit my job on Friday the 13th, mm-hmm. 2004. No, was it 2004? Yeah, 2004. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. She was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Sure I am." When it's time, it's time.
It's time. And I thought about you when I was on the plane because you told me your story. Yep. And then when I'm reading a book on the plane, like I'm gonna quit, I was like, oh my God, like this is a cat moment. Like,
listen, I remember closing that book and I was like, it's time for me to quit my job. And it was like this it was this very clear thing.
Yes.
And it's important. And I think it's important for people to know these stories. Who's the War of Art by?
Steven Pressling. I think I'm saying that right. Yes. Right. I'm trying to look at it on my bookshelf. I think it's not Pressling, Pressfield. Steven Pressfield. It's the guy who wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance. He wrote this book.
Oh.
Yeah. So Steven Pressfield, not Pressling, Pressfield, I think. Yeah. But it's super short, like 120 pages. Mm-hmm. Like if you're really in the zone, you could read it, cover to cover, whatever. But absolutely, like 10 pages in, I was like, I'm out.
Right. And the thing is, what usually happens in these moments is that it's like your spirit self has been like, we need to leave, right? But the part of you that lives in the physical plane that knows what costs are and what bills are and all this is like, And Black people, you don't leave a job till you get a job.
Listen. And I'm gonna tell you too, one thing that I did that was super crucial. The second thing that I did that was very not traditional. The first thing I did, I think that was so important, sis, was who I decided to share my decision with, because I knew enough to know, like, okay, I need to seek, because this is big, you know what I mean? And I need to at least know that I talked it out or share, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not totally operating in a vacuum, but I cannot, like you said, I can't call my family because they'll be like, oh, hell no, you know what I mean? You better keep that good job. So I called Evelyn, mm-hmm. I called Dana, mm-hmm. and I called the guy I was seeing at the time, who's now my mate. And Dana had said, it was never a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And I'm just so glad that you made this decision. I didn't tell my parents until weeks later, you know what I mean, when I was in it. But yeah, so that was, and I realized like how important that was. Because if you told somebody that was like, girl, you better stay. And it's like, you start having those second thoughts, Right. And so that was so important. And then what I did that was not traditional, and I don't recommend this. It's just, I was, it was like spades. It was like, go big or go home. It was just like, I rated my 401k. I was willing to do it. You know what I mean? And I left enough because I need something in this world for me and my kid. But it was just like, I know that money's for later, but I'm living right now. And for me, it was just what I needed to do to keep things going and stuff like that. And I was just like, well, I better make the most of my life so I could pay these here taxes and my 60s pulling this money.
I did the same thing. I'll never forget. There was this really sweet woman that I used to work with, Debbie Green. And she, when I was still there, we had, I can't remember what happened, but there was some sort of financial crisis and like everybody's 401ks tanked. Mm-hmm. And there was this moment where she came to me, she's like, look at this. And she was in tears and she was trying, because she was deciding whether or not to to quit because she was like, I'm tired of this. I want to raise my boys, all this driving back and forth. And she said something. She's like, am I saving to live or am I saving to die?
Right.
And I'll never forget that because when she said that, because everyone was like, well, do you have savings? Do you have stuff saved up? And I was like, no. Like, so you're really going to quit? I was like, yeah. I remember that. Like, what are we saving for?
Yeah. My 401k had been hit by the 2008 when the housing industry collapsed. You know what I mean? And my thing tanked then. So when I'm trying to leave my job in 2015, I was like, well, it can sit there, but then if everything crashes, like I'm gonna lose it anyway. So I'd rather invest it in myself and try to make something of myself, than to just let it sit there. So that is a decision. I don't tell that to everybody in terms of like do that, but it's a decision I don't regret at all. So
you have to do what's best for you. And I think that particularly when Black women are trying to get free, like whatever you need to do, you do it. Because who you've become. Oh my God.
Yeah. No, I mean, to keep it all the way trill, Kat, I mean, I went from making close to 6 figures within 6 months. I was on food stamps, you know what I mean? Because I was like, I got to feed my kid. And that wasn't an easy decision for me, right? Because the whole journey is about avoid food stamps. You know what I mean? Like, love yourself.
Right.
And it was like, it's there. I've had a job since I'm 14. I've paid tax. Like, this is what it's there for. I'm trying to do something better with my life, And so, listen, that food card was accepted at Whole Foods and Mom's and thank you. And so I did, and I'm not ashamed of that. You know what I mean? I did that for probably like 2 years until, I had like a part-time job and, just a little bit more sustainable income and stuff like that. But, that first year or two, it was like, I got to do what I got to do because I'm not going back. Did
you ever have any moments like maybe in the dark? Like, oh shit, what did I do?
Oh yeah.
And how did you move? How did you talk yourself out of that?
I thought about that feeling I would feel on Sunday nights. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to feel that again. You know what I mean? Literally, I would think it for a second, like about the money being cute. And then I would think about the anxiety I would feel. And that would make me feel that anxiety again. And it was just like, no. So I would literally, if I can say this respectfully, it was almost like my spirit was like, Harriet Tubman, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to keep going forward. There's no going back. You know what I mean? We're just going to keep following this North Star. And that's honestly like what it was. It was like every time I felt like I should give in, I would have to talk myself out, or the universe doing what it does, something would just pop up. Like a student would message like, thank you for that class. Somebody would be like, oh, hey, I have an opportunity. And that, again, when you look at the breadcrumbs, it was like, okay, that's a sign to keep going, because it wasn't like, like I said, I'm on food stamps, rated my 401k. It wasn't like all this yoga business just dumped in my lap because I made this great decision. And that was a lot of the journey too, sis, was like realizing like, it's not just the one step. Cause I got stuck in that one step. Like I did it, and you just kind of keep expecting the stuff to come to you.
Right.
The continuous walk of absolute faith, And so, yeah.
It's interesting because that is what happens. You're like, oh, I did it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I'm cute. I quit my job.
I listen. You told me to quit my job. I listen. I'll never forget. Like I quit the job, and because of the type of work that I did, I was able to stay on like as a consultant for like maybe 2 or 3 months.
Yep.
So, you the corporate space is kind of cool because if because Black people don't take off, all of the stuff that I got, that lump sum payment because I hadn't really used my vacation and all this. So I had this nice little check. So I was like, oh, I'm chilling. And I'll never forget one day, I think I looked at my bank account and I was like, oh shit, I have no money.
Yes. And you knew it wasn't nothing coming in the next 2 weeks, or at least, down the line. And it was like, oh,
okay. I'm in trouble. And so I actually I wanted to work at the herb shop because I really wanted to learn more. Reading wasn't enough for me. And I was like, well, I guess I need a job.
Yeah.
And I was starting to teach. And so I had 1 or 2 gigs here. It was hilarious because I remember looking at I was like, oh, I don't have any money and there's nothing coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a real moment. Like, what am I gonna do? Yes. Yes.
So, luckily I come from a family of multiple jobs. And so I went and got some more jobs and was able to sustain myself. And my journey is completely different because I didn't have a child to support. When you're, you know, when I think about what you did, it is incredibly courageous because I do think for me, it might have been a harder decision. And I can't imagine it was an easy decision for you, but, you know, kudos, because not everybody does it.
And I tell you what, sis, what I've learned about myself is I kind of don't. It was definitely tough going through it, but I just do it. You know what I mean? And then after the fact, I like hit the wall, like, oh Lord, I done this. You know what I mean? Like, and then I took a moment, but so it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because you're going until you hit the wall, and then the wall slows you down. But I also was just like, I'm here and I got to go, and this is what I'm doing. You know, so, but the same thing, and I would say it was two things. Like 3 months in, again, being all the way real, my son's father decided he wanted to find his free. This is 3 months after I made my decision to leave. Right. So at least we're co-parenting and I have that support.
Right.
He decided he needed to find his free and moved thousands and thousands of miles away. And so like suddenly, and so it was just like, it was really just me. And now it's like, okay, I don't have a job, I don't have a family, and now I don't have my co-parent. You know what I mean? Like, what is this really going to look like? Because to be able, as you know, to do a business, to start a business, you have to be able to come and go and take opportunities. And so it was just like, how's this going to work? And as you remember from them Red 10 meetings, Voss would come with me everywhere, you know? And so it was just like, he's just going to watch mommy do what mommy does. And so eventually when he got big enough, it was like, all right, help me lay out these yoga mats, help me put stuff down, like, you know, but so it was a beautiful struggle, you know what I mean? Like beautiful in the sense that he could see what I was doing, but certainly a struggle just from the day to day, you know?
How did you explain to him, you know, why you were making these types of decisions?
Well, I asked him, I said, what did you think mommy did for work when mommy worked in DC? He was just like, you just had a job where you was in traffic a lot. Cause he just repeated what I always said. And you worked in his office and, you know, Amber was like your favorite coworker. And like, so he didn't really know what I did. And so I used that as kind of the foundation to say, well, this is why mommy left that, because mommy feels like she wants to help people and be of service to people. And I'm just trying to create this life to do that. And it's really important for me that, you know, you have that freedom of mind. You know what I mean? Like, you know, he's in school and if he wants to go to college, great. But in my head, I'm just like, I know so much of my journey was like not feeling free in here because you told me that first meeting, I was too worried about what everybody was thinking. I was living my life according to everybody else's wants, expectations. And that I mean, I suffered from that, you know, and sometimes I still do a little bit, but I explained to him that I just want him to have the freedom of mind to, you know what I mean? To just make choices and to not worry about what I'll think or what such and such will think. And so he's really understood that. And he is proud of what I do. You know, the other day he came to me like, Mom, you know, I think I might want to be a therapist because I like watching how you help people. And I think I want to help people too. And you know what I mean? So it's just like, oh man, okay.
You know, I often say that as Gen Xers, I think our job is to be the curse breakers. Like we're the ones that are, you know, oddly enough, as much as it was conditioned into us, get a job, get married, have some kids, and that's your life.
Right.
A lot of my village is these very fierce women who tried it and was like, no, I'm not doing that no more. Or who were like, I now don't want to. And are really kind of changing the narrative around what a full life looks like. And I wonder when, you know, when I think about, because I remember some of the conversations that we had around when you got married, I was absolutely like shocked. I was like, what kind of family friend group do you have? This is insane. But do you, now that you're in it, you've been doing it, you didn't die, you didn't fall apart, you didn't, you know what I'm saying? You made it, you made it through. Have you found yourself, some of your family members coming to you like, girl, how did you do it? Are you finding that there's some shifting in the mentality?
Not so much in terms of like, I want to do it too. How'd you do it? But more in terms of like, there was just, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing to like, so what's a stretch I can do to help my lower back? You know what I mean? It was more inquiry about, what I was doing and how it could help them. You know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, fortunately I had actually two brothers, one brother who kind of did the entrepreneurial thing and one brother older who took the creative route. So there was some, you know what I mean, understanding with that, but I'm the only girl and I'm the baby. So it was like, you have to stay safe. You know what I mean? Like you have to stay within those parameters. So there was some resistance, like, what are you doing? How are you going to make it work? You know, feeling like I didn't have that support. But eventually the shift, when I just started being asked about how could yoga help them, or, you know, things like that. And I was like, okay, there's starting to be some understanding and stuff. And now, you know, my mom is like, you know, super proud, super happy, but she was definitely the number one, like, WTF, you know what I mean? Teach yoga, you know, and you know, I love yoga, but it's not something that can pay all the bills when you first start out. Like it really is something you have to put together, get the part-time job, and you know. And I came in to teaching right when Instagram started blowing up. You know, that intersection was very interesting for me because you're seeing everybody doing all these beautiful postures and doing this and doing that. And so I'm just like, okay, well, I'm gonna do what they doing and see if I have that success. And, you know, I was trying to model what I saw on social media, and it just wasn't my model. You know what I mean? So even trying to figure all of that out. But yeah, no, but I definitely have like that family support now. And, you know, and no, nobody's telling me like, go back, get a job. It's just like, all right, we're here now. This is what she's doing.
You know, my dad was like, so you want to quit your job? I was like, yeah, why? And I was just like, so I said, your quality of life, Dad. I need my quality of life. He was like, quality of life. It was when I think back at the moment, my father was like, what in the entire hell are you doing? You have this job, you travel, you do, you want to quit your job. He said, well, can't you file for disability for a little bit and figure? I was like, no, Dad, that's not how it works. It was hilarious.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, like you say, when it comes to breaking the generational curses, it's like, who are we to have a quality of life? Like, that's the generation they come from. Like, that's not even a consideration. You know
it's
what I mean?
Thing. This idea of going to go find myself, it's a very white thing to them. And because to this day, my dad still doesn't know. I mean, he knows that I teach. So that's a big part of like my identity for him. But you know, in those years, he didn't know what I was doing. And there were some moments where I had to go ask him for help.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I had to quit. I got fired from a situation that shall not be named. I
had one of those moments too.
I got fired because I just wasn't. My skill set wasn't appreciated, and I remember standing outside, calling my dad in tears. I was like, Dad. And he was like, what happened? And I said, they fired me. And he was like, who fired you? And I told him, he was like, why did you even work at that stupid place anyway? Better than that. He's like, why are you crying? I was like, because he was like, is your father dead? I was like, no. He's like, I'll give you some money. Just go home. Why are you with these people? I mean, it was the most amazing, like, as someone who never expected my father to show up that way, that was pretty amazing. And so, you know, one of the things that you work through when you do this is that you know that your people are like, I don't really know. But then I love that I could ask for help when I needed it.
Yes, because it's the happiness, you know, Kat, like it's interesting. I thought my dad was going to be more like, what the hell? And I thought my mom was going to be more open, you know, again, because of what my brothers had done. And my mom was just, like I said, she freaked out. But my dad was like, listen, kid, you got to be happy, you know, and that just meant so much to me. You know, that helped me too a couple of times to pay that mortgage. Like, you know, I'm so grateful. But you know, and so over the years, you know, when it comes to the other family that's had to try and get on board, like they see that and it's like, she's happy, she's making a difference, you know what I mean? Like, she's not, like you said, she's not on the street, she's not dead, you know what I mean? Like, she's here, you know? And so, yeah, it's a beautiful thing when that starts to happen.
It is. And I think the thing that I love most about your journey is that what I love is that you did have people who got what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
Because I do think a village is really important when you in any of these sort of iterations of yourself.
Yeah.
And when we start to pivot into this space, now you went from, oh, I don't really want to teach, I just want to learn for myself, to now and then it was like, that's cute, but so how does one, and you know, let me take a step back. I was really intrigued about what you said about the social media, because one of the things that, you know, IG yoga was really focused on for a very long time was a certain body type.
Yes.
Lighting and all this other stuff. I remember I tongue in cheek asked, like, who takes these pictures y'all be doing when y'all be poses? Like, if you are in the mountains somewhere in lotus pose, Who took this picture?
Girl, listen, I mean, and there was one yogi that I followed for a long time, tall, blonde, white girl, and she's like in Aruba, all these beautiful pictures. And I'm like, I'm in the door frame of my bedroom trying to do something, trying to hope Voss hold the camera. You know what I mean? Girl, I mean, if you look back on some of my earlier pictures, you will see it. It's all fuzzy. But yeah, and that's what I mean. So it was like, but because that was like the crossroads for me, and that's what I saw, I was like, okay, well, I guess this is what I should look like, and this is what I should be doing, and I should be having these retreats in these exotic places. And it took me a good minute to realize, like, that's not my world. That's not who's coming to my class. That's not what I look like, you know? And I really had to begin to find the yoga for myself, you know what I mean? As far as the work, the practice, the teaching, all of it. And, you know, I came in following all of the yoga people on Instagram. And I remember I sat there and but like unfollowed, you know, like a bunch of people, and kept like, you know, just a small few. Cause I'm like, energy is energy. And even if you're teaching yoga, it ain't always right, or it's not good for me, or whatever it is. So.
So one of the things that it brings to me, this question, you know, the way yoga has been sort of proselytized to the masses is very not in line with the principles of yoga, or even traditional yogic practice.
Right.
And I wonder for you, how do you manage that?
That's a beautiful question, Kat. And it took me a long time to figure it out, because just as you said, on social media, it's very body driven. You know, it's very, how do you look, and super funky pose, and I'm doing this handstand on one fingertip. And then somebody who's thinking about yoga, they see that and they think that's what it's supposed to look like. Right. And they'll either beat themselves up trying to get into this posture, or they'll think that's not for me, and never even have a chance to experience what the practice is really about. And so when I realized I kept trying to force certain postures in my body, that just like my body was just like, nah, you know what I mean? It was just like, you're not gonna be able to do that one finger handstand. Like your body's just like, no. It made me realize, like, okay, it's not, because what I was trying to do at first was market the yoga. Right. And then I realized, no, people come to my class, the space that I hold is something about my presence. It's the message, it's the community. And then that's when I began to pivot and say, this is about the inside work. You know what I mean? Like, really, even though I understood that for me, it took me a minute before I realized that was the work I had to do externally, if that makes sense. And then when I started really focusing on that helped me start to own my space a little more. And I really started to teach the practice from the 8 limbs. You know what I mean? Like, how are you dealing with yourself? How are you dealing with the world? The physical stuff is just a piece of it, you know? What's your self-study? How are you know what I mean? Just how do you take care of yourself and all that? And so I began to incorporate all of the principles in my classes. And, you know, we use the physical to help deal with things, but I'm always trying to incorporate some philosophy, some messaging, some nugget, you know what I mean? So that they know it's not just this body thing. It's really a body, mind, and spirit thing, you know? So, yeah.
I met a Black yogi once, who basically, for her, she was one of the first yogis who I'd ever spoken to, who really was like, this is a life sort of long journey. Absolutely. Like, you know, I take this very seriously in the way that I treat people. Because I've met people who are yogis and who are just terrible people. I'm like, well, how you not breathing right now in this moment? Like, what just happened?
Right.
What's going on? And so I do think it's important. One, I think representation is important. And I love the proliferation of Black yogis. Because I do think that there's this tendency, even the way yoga has been, what's the word I'm looking for? Appropriated.
Yes.
It, you know, you forget that it is a tradition that is born out of India, that it's not like sort of this white girl, white boy sort of, you know, thing. Right. And I've heard people say that, you know, the way that the US in particular, the West, I should say, has taken yoga and turned it into a fitness is really kind of destroyed a lot of the principles around it.
Yes. And it's sad, because it's definitely and I'm just saying it, no offense to anybody that wears it, but it's Lululemoned out. You know what I mean? It's about the $90 yoga pant and the fancy top and the bag. And like you said, the background and all of that. And it's like, okay, you look great, but what's going on? You know what I mean? On like the inside, you know what I mean? And it's just, so yeah, it's just really unfortunate, because it does get away from like the healing system and practice that it really is and can be for people. And I'm just, when you talk about the proliferation of Black yoga teachers, I'm super proud to be, like a part of that movement. And I didn't even realize that at first when I came in. It was just like, I just want to teach yoga. And then, like I said, on social media, you see all the whitewashing of it, frankly, and I'm trying to meet that standard. And I'm like, that when I realized, like, that's not me, you know what I mean? Like, that's not my voice. That's not my look. That's not anything. I started to realize, like, it is very important for me to show up who I am, because I'm a point of access for so many of us. You know what I mean? Like, Dana is a point of access for so many of us, and so that became more important to me than any cool posture, any cool thing. It was just like, I want to make sure people have access to this healing. They're moving their bodies. They're thinking about, because when you start to get into the body, then you start to think about, how am I eating? How am I thinking? What am I doing? Do I like my job? You know what I mean? Like, you just start to think about life, a little bit more. And I think that's what's so important.
What is the plan for you? So you started Rachel Voss Yoga. It's 2 years old now? 3 years old?
Girl, 6.
Oh!
May 1st. I left corporate world April 30th, 2015, and Rachel Voss Yoga was born May 1st.
Look at that. I love it.
Yes.
Well, I know you're doing a podcast now.
Yes.
So I love that.
Yes.
How are you? How has the pandemic affected the way that you sort of present yourself and manage your classes and things?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you saw that versus with Erica and Jill, Erica had said, like, this pandemic has been like a challenge and a restoration. You know what I mean? There's been like two sides of it. And I've had some challenge, but I've been blessed with a lot of restoration. You know what I mean? I've been blessed with a lot of, like, clarity and stuff. And so for me, honestly, before the pandemic, I was teaching at studios, going to people's houses, doing this, doing that, running everywhere, just trying to keep this thing going. And it didn't feel sustainable to me. And that was burning me out, to be honest.
Right.
But I couldn't think of any other way to give the yoga. And I would get my Akashic readings, and I would be told, like, you need to go virtual, but I couldn't, you know what I mean? It was like, conceptually, I was like, I don't know what that looks like. And then you have the pandemic, and I was already comfortable with Zoom from other, events and things I had done. And I saw one yoga teacher kind of just take her stuff and do like this 5-day-a-week live stream. And I was like, well, I'm gonna do the same thing for my people. Let me figure it out. And I jumped online, and because I knew I wanted to offer something. I couldn't figure out the what at first, but I will say, in that moment, Kat, with the pandemic, once everything shut down, it made me so grateful I had made my choice, because I'm like, if I was still sitting behind that desk, I don't feel like I would have had anything to contribute. And Lord knows I might have been subjected to being fired. You know what I mean? If the money wasn't right. But I was in a position to be able to serve and to show up. And I just thought about the community. And so figuring out how to go online was just a beautiful thing, because there were people who wanted to take classes but weren't in the Maryland area, so it just opened up the practice to so many different people. And so it honestly, not that the pandemic was a blessing, but moving virtual, having to move virtual was a blessing, because it's now shifted how I plan on operating from here on out. So it's been a beautiful thing. I mean, I've turned my little space into a yoga studio. I got my little lights and, all that stuff. And I'm streaming 4 days a week. I do free live meditation twice a month. I try to make my classes very low cost, so they're accessible. Because it's just important to me that people have a space to return to, when the world feels heavy. I think about folks who are home alone. So I try to have it be like a space of community. We, at the end of every class, we take time and chat and check in and stuff like that. So it's been a beautiful thing. I've been streaming live. I think this week will make 44 weeks, because I kind of so it's been a beautiful thing. And it's really just opened up my mind to where I can go, because I always knew it wouldn't be just teaching yoga. And I would hit a wall with that all the time. Like, but what is it? What is it? And the path is ever evolving. You know what I mean? And so I just, I've always kind of been interested in a podcast. I decided to sit down and start doing that. Feels totally organic for me. And so now I can kind of start to see the path a little bit more, like, okay, in terms of speaking and writing, and I can see how the things I'm doing now are really creating a foundation. Right. I'd like this to go in the future. So
moving forward, once we are able to be back out in the streets, what, do you plan on doing in person, or do you?
Not so much the everyday stuff, you know, but I definitely want to do retreats because I know folks are going to be ready to, you know, get out, get some air. You know what I mean? I'm dying to get back to Costa Rica myself. So I definitely plan on doing like live retreats, more kind of like what you do, like the experiential spaces, as opposed to just teaching yoga classes every day. Like that running around back and forth, I can't do that anymore. But
listen, I got something in the pocket, so get ready because you know
I'm here.
I've already got a foundation.
Yes.
There's a place already.
I'm here.
Like, okay, we're gonna gather the folk and we're all gonna go
because they're gonna be ready to go. They're gonna be ready to go.
They will be
ready to go.
When I think about how far you've come and just sort of how happy you are, the one place I'm really excited about, like I said, I'm gonna get in your business, is your life.
Get all up in it.
Because you have found, you know, you have your partner and things are moving really well. And I remember those conversations around partnership.
Yes.
And I remember those years without partnership and, you know, what that looked like. Can you talk a little bit about that aspect of partnership? Not so much because I'm not necessarily interested in sort of marriage. I'm actually interested in listening to you about partnership.
Okay. No, I think I know exactly what you're saying, because when you met me, Kat, I was very much defined by partnership. You know what I mean? Like I said, it was this goal of like, find your husband, get married, have your kids, have your good job, and just live out the rest of your life and you'll be fine.
Right.
And then when you get divorced 2 years in, it's like, oh, that wasn't part of the dream. You know what I mean? Like that was not in my fantasy whatsoever. And it was a little bit, you know, of an internal battle for me in a way, because a part of me feels wired like I want to have a family, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I just kind of feel wired that way. But then I had to learn to be my own partner, you know what I mean? To be like my own best friend. I realized I tried to find myself so much in these relationships and, you know, all that type of stuff. And it really had to come to that place of choosing me. And honestly, when I stepped out to do this work full time and I really chose me and my life, partnership became like secondary, you know what I mean? And then when partnership became secondary, it came into my life in a way that was much more balanced, you know? And so when I wasn't trying to force it, I mean, I still have my moments. I'm a Scorpio. I want what I want, but like, you know, and he's Capricorn. So it definitely be some moments of like, Lord, like if this woman and her emotions, but it's in a, because I'm in a healthier place, my partnerships. And honestly, sis, the intimate or this kind of relationship is one thing, but it's even for my relationships with other women, because I had unhealthy female relationships or women relationships in my life. You know what I mean? But it was just all about like being accepted and being defined. And this person, if I know this person, like, you know, and then finally, the more you choose you, it's like, nah, I'm a little bit careful about who's in my square now, you know, and who I'm really creating partnerships with, you know? Yeah. So it's much more intentional. And if it just don't feel aligned, then, you know,
like
it's all about alignment from here on out.
Right.
If it's not right with my soul.
So in thinking about alignment, how do you stay aligned? Because with all the things that you're doing, with all the ways that you have to show up, you're a mom, you have a partner, you have a business. What does alignment look like for you? And how do you know when you're out of alignment?
So I'll be honest and say I'm probably a little bit more out of alignment than I'm in alignment, but this year is about getting myself together, because I definitely am a giver. You know what I mean? So I give and give and give. And like I said, I'll give to the point and then I hit the wall and then I crumple and I'm like, oh God. But no, this year has really been about sitting with my candles. I'm really, you know, Kat, like my relationship with the ancestors is kind of like, hey, ancestors, I need this, thanks. But now I'm like, I've created my altar. You know what I mean? I'm really sitting time. I'm spending time with the ancestors, giving the offerings. And so for me, alignment just really is making sure I'm spiritually filled up. You know what I mean? I have what I need. I have my time for myself. You know, like if I need to do my yoga practice, it's telling Voss, like, do not bother me for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? It's telling my partner, like, I need a little space. So it's just making sure I'm doing the everyday little things, you know, to keep myself going. Because it really, and you know, like as a healer, as a giver, you have to keep yourself filled up to be able to give out. And so, yeah, for me, alignment just means keeping up with my rituals, making everything, like even how I oil myself in the morning, making that like a ritual. Yeah. So
you know, I love a good ritual. I got excited.
Yes. So I definitely was about like teaching. But now it's like, no, I gotta apply. You know
that right there. That's the thing that we all need to be better at. So many amazing gems and wisdoms coming out of everybody's mouth, and I know so many amazing women who do all kinds of work. But then, you know, in their personal lives are not applying it.
Right.
And so we do need to get better at taking our own advice.
Yes.
You know, at being our own, at being, you know, students of ourselves.
Yes. Because it just makes us, I can see the difference now. Like, you know, I love to pull cards for myself, and I always felt like, I want to do this for my class, but I would be like a little scared.
Right.
And now I'm doing it more for myself. So now I have a class where I'm like, y'all know I'm gonna pull a card in this class, and they love it. You know what I mean? So it's like the more you take care of yourself and you show up authentically, you know what I mean? Like the work will keep showing up, the people will keep showing up. So yes, it's an absolute beautiful thing. For sure.
I love it. Well, we are closing this out with the question that I try to ask, especially when I remember, because lately I've just been so excited about things. I keep forgetting to ask this question. So, pandemic is under control. You know, numbers are going down. Some folks are vaccinated. You know, we're doing our thing. What's the first thing you're looking forward to doing?
Hugging my mom. You know, hugging my mom, and I know that's a blessing. You know, to be able to do that. But I, you know, my dad. Because my dad had a stroke in the middle of this pandemic, and to not be able to be there for him was really, really tough, you know. So hugging my parents, my stepmom, my dad, and my mom, you know, I'm very blessed to still have my three primaries. And so that's the first thing, because I've needed a hug a couple of times, you know. And so to be able to get that hug is the first thing I'm gonna do. And then we're gonna do the retreat. Get my husband like, I gotta go.
Right. I got you.
And then go to a beach, because I definitely need.
Listen. Yeah. I know Jamaica says full up, and then I take it. God dang it, I am so ready to go sit. And I have 15 different colors. I hate it. Like I need my melanin to come back into amalgamation and be.
Listen, you know I'm already pale, so it is like, oh God.
No, but it's terrible. I'm like, it's like a striped bear over here. Can't wait to be one color again.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Man, the pleasure and honor is all mine.
I really, really enjoyed this. I really needed this. So thank you for being so open. Everyone's been talking about how infectious your energy is. So, you know, when and where are your classes?
So my classes we do them through Zoom. So I do them Tuesday through Saturdays. And link in my bio. So if you just Rachel Voss Yoga, everything. And I'm true to my word. If I know folks are struggling financially, you know, hardships and all that stuff. So if it's just like, I just need a space, I don't have the funds, it's okay. The space is always there. So yeah, I'm teaching Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday. Little bit of everything, like gentle, restorative, active. So something for everybody. Yeah.
RachelVossYoga.com. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
It's a great deal. We'll be back next week, which I didn't realize is Valentine's Day. And so our next guest is Kareem Latif, one of my absolute faves. So, you know, that'll be a fun little, you know, having. And I am teaching an herb class February 27th. So if you just go to blackmagicsisters.com, BLKMGKsisters.com, you'll check out the I Got 5 series. So let me know, Rachel, if you want to come in and hang out.
Absolutely.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
All right. So we are out. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. You didn't miss it, Elise. Hey, Elise, you can watch it on the replay. Love you all. And we'll be back next week. You know, we got to be out of here because this culture ain't going to make itself. All right, everyone. Take care.
Peace.